In chapter 2 now, we can catch up with the temple cleansing, which occurs at Passover right after the wedding feast in Cana. The temple cleansing in John 2 was mentioned briefly already as it related to the judgment passage in Ezekiel 23. This was the passage about Aholah and Aholibah, which shows that Jerusalem is the adulterous wife of God who is being judged, where one of the elements brought as evidence is the defilement of God's sanctuary. As soon as the wedding feast was over, John inserted Jesus' temple cleansing during the Passover as though to make sure we would see the connection. Because this is a study in John's use of Moses, we will not attempt to explain all of the passages or track down all of the citations, so there's much going on that will be unsaid in this study. To emphasize the case, though, a quick look at the example of Jesus' citation of Psalm 69 during this temple cleansing will be warranted. Psalm 69 is a psalm where David is crying out for God's vindicating rescue, and it is applied to Jesus in many ways. One application is at his crucifixion, but there is also a common theme in this psalm that relates to the wedding feast and the judgment of the preceding verses. When Jesus quotes a psalm, he often means to apply it in its entirety, and this one includes these words of imprecation. Quote, "May the table set before them become a snare. May it become retribution and a trap. May their eyes be darkened so they cannot see, and their backs be bent forever. Pour out your wrath on them. Let your fierce anger overtake them. May their place be deserted. Let there be no one to dwell in their tents. For they persecute those who wound and talk about the pain of those you hurt. Charge them with crime upon crime. Do not let them share in your salvation. May they be blotted out of the book of life and not be listed with the righteous." That's Psalm 69, 22-28. We can clearly see the connection to the feast and the pouring of the wine in the highlighted phrases. Before we move directly to Moses, this phrase also has one more prophetic referent in Jeremiah 7. John has Jesus quoting the above psalm, but we see also Jeremiah's instructions from God in the reference to Jesus clearing out his den of thieves. In the connected passage, Jeremiah is foretelling the abandonment of the temple and destruction of Jerusalem due to the false religion of the current system that Jesus is replacing. When Jesus picks up this Jeremiah 7 prophecy, we also see the connection to the wedding feast, this time via the Lamb's high feast of Revelation. The image of the feast seen in the psalm is connected to the defilement of the sanctuary, which Jesus cleanses in John's gospel. The beverages the Israelites pour out in their insincere and idolatrous rites provoke the pouring out of God's wrath. The wedding feast then becomes the destruction of Jerusalem and pictures the final judgment scene in Revelation with the Lamb's high feast. Verse 11, "Has this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes? Behold, I myself have seen it, declares the Lord." Verse 13, "And now, because you have done all these things, declares the Lord, and when I spoke to you persistently, you did not listen. And when I called you, you did not answer." Verse 15, "And I will cast you out of my sight, as I cast out all your kinsmen, all the offspring of Ephraim." Verse 18, "And they pour out drink offerings to other gods to provoke me to anger. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, Behold, my anger and my wrath will be poured out on this place, upon man and beast, upon the trees of the field and the fruit of the ground. It will burn and not be quenched." Verse 29, "Cut off your hair and cast it away. Raise a lamentation on the bare heights, for the Lord has rejected and forsaken the generation of his wrath." Verse 33, "And the dead bodies of this people will be food for the birds of the air and for the beasts of the earth, and none will frighten them away. And I will silence in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall become a waste." That was Jeremiah 7, selected verses from 11 to 33. Jesus is the prophet pronouncing judgment on the temple here, but he is also taking on the role of Moses, or his appointed Levitical priest, from the book of Leviticus. This temple inspection and cleansing is placed at the beginning of his ministry in John, but the Synoptic Gospels have Jesus perform this act at the end, immediately prior to his death. Both place it in the context of Passover, which connects us to Moses via his festivals, and in a challenge to Jesus' authority. In both, that authority is demonstrated to have come from God, as he is the anointed Son of God. He is God. but he is also a Mosaic priest, and we can see an action similar to this in the book of Leviticus. This is Leviticus 14, starting at verse 36. And this priest is to go in and inspect the house. Verse 40. He is to order that the contaminated stones be torn out and thrown into an unclean place outside the town. He must have all the inside walls of the house scraped, and the material that is scraped off dumped into an unclean place outside the town. Then they are to take other stones to replace these and take new clay and plaster the house. If the defiling mold reappears in the house after the stones have been torn out and the house scraped and plastered, the priest is to go and examine it, and if the mold has spread in the house, it is a persistent defiling mold. The house is unclean. It must be torn down, its stones, timbers, and all the plaster, and taken out of the town to an unclean place. Leviticus 14. The priest is to inspect the house, remove the contaminants, and then return to inspect the house a second time. If it is defiled, it is to be thrown down. Not one stone will be left upon another. The Gospels present Jesus' temple cleansings at two separate points of his ministry, in which we can see this dual inspection. John has the first, where Jesus throws out the money changers and begins spreading his message, replacing the old with the new. In the Synoptics, he inspects it again during Passion Week and finds the problem persists. He then preaches the Olivet Discourse with the condemnation of the temple to its destruction, which is then fulfilled in John's other opus, Revelation.